One of the reasons why I decided on Kartik was his initial enthusiasm for going through something like this.
Thank God you didn't give him a monologue in this.
Yeah. The two things that you're famous for is your hair, which I'm going to cut as soon as we start the film, and are your monologues. And I promise you, your silences in this film will speak louder than your monologues. Don't know where Kabul is. And we see this one lone, big 6 feet 3 inches 4 inches tall mujahideen coming towards us very angrily. I really thought that that's the way my life's been written, and I'll be shot somewhere here. Nobody will know we are here. The one studio which I did not approach was Yashraj studio. Conventional wisdom said that अरे वो तो नहीं करेंगे, Yashraj doesn't do these kind of films. Anyway, आदित्य चोपड़ा से मिलेंगे कैसे? वो आदमी है भी या नहीं है? Nobody like it. Is he a figment of someone's imagination? Like the joke in Yashraj used to be that, you know, Adi has just been invented by Yashji to scare people.
He's been manifested. Yeah. He's been manifested. Yeah. If there's any director whose knowledge of geopolitics is beyond that even of historians, it is the stylized filmmaker from whose magic baton we've seen many magical movies like Bajrangi Bhaijaan, Ek Tha Tiger, recently Chandu Champion, 83 and so many more. Of course, he began with Kabul Express, a satirical film which people still love. Today we are going to welcome Kabir Khan, who loves his heroes too much to let them be forgotten. His story of Chandu Champion is about a forgotten hero, but we are not going to forget him anymore. Welcome to my podcast, Kabir. It's Showbox with Omar.
Thank you so much, Omar. And what a lovely introduction. I think one of the best I've had in the recent weeks.
Thank you. That feels good to hear. Yeah. So, Kabir, this was my take on you, my introduction of you. But suppose you were a journalist putting a pin on Kabir Khan and trying to introduce yourself. How would you do that? How would you describe yourself?
Well, I would pick up elements from what you did, but I think the other thing that I would say, which I feel very privileged and fortunate, is that I've managed to stick to my path, and I've managed to, tell stories the way I've always wanted to, pick up the stories that have attracted me and tell them the way I wanted to. I think, and for me, that's always been what I say is my success. More than anything else, for me, success is till the point that I'm allowed to pick up the kind of stories that excite me and tell them in my unique way. When I started out with Kabul Express, I came from documentaries, and I remember a lot of people used to say, "Kisi ko batana nahi documentaries karte ho." But today, I think if there's any USP that I have, it's my documentary backdrop that brings a certain, I think, unique perspective into all the films that I do.
Yeah, but from documentaries to mainstream cinema, that's quite a leap, and not many people can make it. Yeah. Like there are journalists who try to make a leap, political writers who try to make a leap, not been successful. For you, it was just like you walked from one yard into another, into a neighbor's yard.
So, it was also, I was very clear that so the reason why I stopped doing documentaries was because I was feeling a little frustrated with the lack of an audience base, not being able to reach out to a wider audience. And this is when I was doing documentaries is before all the OTT platforms are there, before YouTube was there. We had to give your documentaries to a certain channel, and beyond Discovery and National Geographic, for whom I did a few, there were not really too many platforms available. So the reason why I shifted to the big screen was, a very interesting incident happened with me. If you want, I'll narrate that where I realized the power of mainstream cinema. It literally actually saved my life. So this is in the year 2001, post 9/11. We were trying to get into Afghanistan for a documentary on the Taliban, which went on to become a very successful documentary of mine. And we were trying to get in because we were Indians. We couldn't go through the usual route of Peshawar and then driving to Kabul. So we had to overfly Pakistan. We landed in Uzbekistan, drove to Tajikistan, and we were trying to come in from the northern border of Afghanistan. And everything we tried was a no-go. It was almost like it was jinxed. We tried to cross the mountains, and there were avalanches and landslides. We had to go back. There was a river crossing that we wanted. The river was in spate. One helicopter that we thought we'll take to Kabul crashed the day before we were supposed to catch that helicopter. So it was so bizarre. Okay. And but when we were finally decided, okay, this is it. I don't think Afghanistan in our destiny. Let's go back. We said, okay, one last shot. We went to the airbase in Dushanbe, and we saw this Russian military helicopter being loaded up with medical supplies. And in those days, fortunately for us, the Russian economy was not as strong as it is today. So we took the Russian pilot aside and did some desi jugaad and gave him $2,000. It was a big amount in those days. And he smuggled us inside his helicopter and took off. And we were on the way to Kabul. And it's just a 50-minute ride through the Hindu Kush mountains. And somewhere before Kabul, he just brings the helicopter down and he says, jump. So what the hell do you mean jump?
Oh, God.
He says, no, you're not military personnel, so I can't take you to the base. You'll have to jump off yours. I said, just bring the damn thing down. So some technical jargon about it takes 20 minutes to reboot and we'll be off the radar or something. So literally I'm not, and this is a scene which actually John and Arshad reenacted in Kabul Express. We actually hang off the chopper and jump down. And this chopper goes away. We're in the middle of nowhere. There's like just snow and mountains 360 degrees around us. I don't know where Kabul is. And we see this one lone, big 6 feet, 3 inches, 4 inches tall Mujahideen coming towards us very angrily, cocking his Kalashnikov gun. And I really thought that that's the way my life's been written and I'll be shot somewhere here. Nobody will know we are here because nobody knew we had taken that chopper ride to Kabul. And all we knew is that, the Afghans have a soft spot for Indians. So as he was walking towards us, I kept saying, Hindustan, Hindustan. And suddenly he stopped and he smiled and he started singing, Mere Sapno Ki Rani Kab Aayegi Tu. That day, Bollywood saved my life. And I realized the power of Indian cinema. And I realized that, if I have to tell a story that has to have an impact, it has to be on the big screen.
Hindustan. Amitabh Bachchan.
And from there began the journey of writing my first script, Kabul Express, which was the story of two documentary filmmakers in Afghanistan. So it's autobiographical. And so, therefore, when I decided to go into films, I decided to go into mainstream cinema because I didn't again want to run into the problem of making independent cinema and struggling for an audience base. I wanted to throw out the audience in a big way. And for that, I'm really helpful. I'm really grateful to Aditya Chopra, because he saw even in Kabul Express, which was a very small film. In those days, you could call it like an alternative cinema, but he saw a certain sense of humor. He saw a certain sort of accessibility of larger audiences, and he said that, he said, I'm apolitical, but whenever I needed to understand the politics of Afghanistan, you gave it to me in order to follow the scenes. So if you can do that, even in a larger format, and that's how New York happened.
Okay.
Which, if you look back now, is again a very political film. It's the politics of another country.
9/11,
but at the same time, it is mainstream. It was mainstream casting. It had, John, Katrina, Neil, Irfan, Nawaz in one of his first roles, and it was a very for me a very interesting coming together of my sort of documentary sensibilities and mainstream storytelling. It's the first film in which I used songs, not lip sync, because till that point in time in my career, I was not comfortable with lip sync. But it had a fabulous album, my first collaboration with Preetham. So, that's how it grew. And so I was very clear that, okay, I want to do mainstream cinema. I want to reach out to a larger audience. And then, of course, came Tiger, which set me off onto a completely different journey altogether.
So, Kabir, you did the donkey route before donkey.
Really.
And you happily leapfrogged into YRF. I mean, how easy was it?
It was, I landed in Bombay with the script. And it was a script about two documentary filmmakers who get kidnapped by a Taliban. No love story, no songs. There's a girl, but she's a journalist. There's no really, a romantic triangle there. See, today I know that a script like Kabul Express will get snapped up in moments.
Easy.
But, we're talking about 2004, 2005, where it was a so-called multiplex film at a time when there was only one Fame Ad Labs multiplex in our city. So it wasn't easy. Though I must say that whoever I went to would react very well to the script. And they say, there's something very entertaining about this script. It's not a dark film. And but nobody was really ready to put their money where their mouth was. Even though I had, by that time, I had Nasir Saab actually signed on for that film. I had John, I had Arshad. And went on for about a year. The one studio which I did not approach was Yash Raj Studios.
Okay.
Because conventional wisdom said, and that's why I said conventional wisdom is good, but not always. It stops evolution. You should not listen to it always. conventional wisdom said that अरे वो तो नहीं करेंगे, Yashraj doesn't do these kind of films, you know, they do larger than life chiffon romances is what they used to call them at that point in time. So I said नहीं, anyway आदित्य चोपड़ा से मिलेंगे कैसे, वो आदमी है भी या नहीं है, nobody like it. Is he a figment of someone's imagination? Like the joke in Yashraj used to be that, you know, Adi has just been invented by Yashji to scare people.
He's been manifested. He's been manifested.
So, but in that journey, which must have been about a year and now when I look back, it wasn't much of a struggle. You know, a year and a half is not much. I was trying to pitch the script. Unknown to me, somebody had taken my script and given it to Yashraj.
Okay.
And at that point in time, Yashraj, Adi specifically, was looking for films which are outside of his comfort zone. So suddenly out of the blue, I get a call from somebody from Yashraj, and this lady on the phone says, Aditya Chopra wants to meet you. And I was like, yeah, sure, the King of England wants to meet me. And, you know, I thought Mini was in MTV at that point in time, and there were all these friends who knew the struggle I'm going through. Those days, there was a very popular show called Bakra with Brochas. I thought, Bakra bana raha hai mera. So I started like saying, yeah, sure. But then something about the tone of that lady made me realize that, no, this seems serious. So I said, okay, you know, what time, where? And she gave me the date and time, and I went there half expecting, you know, before I touched the gates, a camera to pop up and somebody to yell Bakra.
Surprise.
But Brocha was not there, and the gate opened. I went in and I said, I'm here to meet Aditya Chopra, and they said yes. And I remember it was the old office, it wasn't the new one. And I walked up to first floor and just opened the door, and I'll never forget that moment because Aditya Chopra was standing across his desk and he was cleaning his reading glasses with the edge of his shirt, and he just looked up and he said, "Hi Kabir," he said, "I've read your script. It's damn good. When can we start?" And that's it. That's how suddenly I was thick in the middle of what we call Bollywood. And from there, then he signed me up for 3 films, and that was Kabul Express, New York, and then Ek Tha Tiger.
Fantastic.
So Adi really helped me, you know, grow in that mainstream space, because he kept saying, okay, let's try. He gave me 3 very, I would say, very unique films. You know, Kabul, New York, and Ek Tha Tiger have very distinct dynamics. And he said that also. He said, I want you to, after New York, and when New York became a surprise box office success, because nobody expected a film like that to do the kind of business it did, because till then people used to say politics is taboo in mainstream cinema. Mat karo. And then suddenly after New York, people used to call me and say, yaar, hamare liye ek New York type film bana do aap. I don't know what that type is, except that it was successful.
Different cities.
Yeah. So... But I remember him saying that, you know, for my 3rd film, he said, you should do a superstar film, because I believe a superstar film has a very different dynamic. And that's how Tiger started, which of course has now gone on to become the Spy Universe. But so that's why I decided, okay, this is where I want to tell my storytelling.
Fabulous, But what a journey.
And
it's just the beginning. So your dad was a parliamentarian.
Yes.
And your mom, from what I gather from your all the conversations with you, is a movie buff.
Yes.
So is that your universe? Your blend of your universe is politics and movies?
Absolutely right. I think that's why it comes organically to me. So my father actually was an academic. He was one of the founding professors of Jawaharlal Nehru University. But for his work in academics, he was nominated to the parliament for two terms. So he was in parliament for 12 years. And our dining room conversation used to have, academics from all over the world, politicians, because we used to live in central Delhi, what is called Lutyens Delhi. So, our neighbors were...
The elite.
The ministers and MPs. So I grew up on that kind of conversation, discussing world politics, domestic politics. It just got ingrained in me. And my mom was this incredible film buff. She had done a play. My family's from Hyderabad, so she had done a play with Sham Benegal. Sham Benegal had directed her in a play. So when his first film came out, Ankur, we were bundled into the car and taken there. Vigyan Bhavan is where it's famous actually for where all the national awards take place. But before I got my first national award there, years before that, every Saturday for MPs and their families, there used to be screenings of cinema. And it could be a Hindi film, it could be world cinema, it could be Godard, Truffaut, Fellini, Indian,
All of them,
Satyajit Ray,
yeah.
anybody. And we used to go there, and mom used to take me and my sister there. And I remember at that time we used to complain a lot because when you're 8 and 10, you don't want to see Godard and Fellini.
No, you don't.
But slowly, that you sort of start cultivating a taste for it. And so that became sort of in a certain sense, everything that I started organically digesting, and that became my worldview. And then when I began to make films, I think they both came together. Because I used to, when I used to watch mainstream cinema, I used to struggle with one thing. I used to struggle with watching, love stories set in La La Land with a, social vacuum, political vacuum. And that's why I remember really enjoying the work of a filmmaker like Mani Ratnam. Because he was the one person I was seeing that he would do these larger than life mainstream cinema with a really engaging human story, but would always have a larger than life backdrop to it,
Yes.
whether it's Roja with Kashmir or whether it's any film that you pick up,
Dalapati,
whether it's Naik, all of those films that you see which have these really active, dynamic backdrops to them. So when I got an opportunity, I said that, I would love to do that. And again, my complete gratitude to Aditya Chopra that he allowed me to do that. And he put his money, whether it's on a New York, at a time when, as I said, politics was taboo, he mounted a film in New York for me, or Tiger, which also is a very political film. But what I did understand in the process of both New York and Tiger and even a Bajrangi or all my films is that in a mainstream film, if you want to put in politics and layers, you should do it, but you should also allow an audience to enjoy a film at face value. So if somebody wants to come in and enjoy a Bajrangi Bhaijaan as just, whatever the fun and games that is unfolding over there, emotions are unfolding there, they can enjoy it and go back home. But if they go into the layers and the subtext of what I'm saying in terms of the, the boundaries within India between our communities, the boundaries between India and Pakistan, or, all the subtext of the secular fabric of our country, then I think they'll just find that viewing a little more profound. They'll enjoy it a little more. But you cannot say that, okay, if you don't understand this, then the film's not for you. Then it's not going to work. You should let them enjoy it at face value.
Layers.
For example, I'll give you a classic example of, one song, the chicken song in Bajrangi Bhaijaan. Actually, I wrote it because around that time, that whole debate on the beef ban was happening. So, if the chicken song is actually the most popular song amongst kids from Bajrangi Bhaijaan.
It is.
But it's also the most political song, because actually what it's saying is, this is Chaudhary Dhaba, आधा है non-veg, आधा है veg. You decide what you want to eat, but we're still under the same roof. So,
fantastic,
so these are the little things that I realized that if you can do it in mainstream cinema, then you can have an audience that enjoys it at face value, and you can have a more critical audience that sort of pick up these layers. And it gives another dimension to it. So I must say that I feel fortunate. I've been enjoying the journey till now. It's been now 17 years, of me making mainstream cinema. And I was reading somewhere a very interesting article that said that the world average for good directors to be relevant is 15 years.
Okay.
So if you're a good director, you'll be relevant for about 15 years. So I was just counting. I said I've taken 2 more years than what is allotted to me. So now everything else is a bonus.
You change the average. Kabir, 3 of my favorite movies from your roster are 83, Bajrangi Bhaijaan and Kabul Express. But your movies are more a journey. A journey over travel, over regions, a journey of people, which you just mentioned. You like movies like the Mani Ratnam movies and all. Why is that? Are you a nomad at heart? Is there a nomad within you?
I'm a huge traveler at heart. Yeah, I just love travel, and I feel that I am today what I am as a person because of my travels. And I often tell people that travel as much as you can, because there's no greater education than that, because I've seen myself changing as a person. I remember an off remark in film school where one documentary filmmaker had come and he had made a film on Angkor Wat in Cambodia, and I was watching the film with fascination. And I remember asking a question about going to, he said, you want to travel? Become a filmmaker. And that just stuck in my mind. I said, really? Is that the way I can get to travel the world? And so when I finished film school, I just latched myself onto a very senior journalist who I still say the only mentor I've had in my life, and the one like life guru if I've ever had in my life has been a gentleman called Saeed Naqvi. Saeed Naqvi was a very senior journalist based in Delhi, and at that time he was very famous. He was called the headhunter because he would do the interviews with all the heads of state. So Gorbachev, the Soviet president, his first interview in the world is Saeed Naqvi.
Wow.
Nelson Mandela, when he got released from prison, the second interview he gave after release is Saeed Naqvi. Yasser Arafat of the PLO, you name it. I mean, he had done all the... So when I joined him, at the stage when I joined him, I call him Saeed Bhai. Saeed Bhai was obsessed with reporting international news with an Indian perspective, because this is, I'm talking about early 90s, when the Indian channels had yet not started traveling. So whatever news we would consume from internationally would be through the sort of prism of BBC and CNN. You know, Western, even Al Jazeera was not there. There was no counterpoint to the Western media. And he said that that's not the way we should be consuming news, because BBC and CNN, at the end of the day, one is a British channel, one is an American channel, and they'll always process news through their perspective.
The Western
so
world.
Where's the perspective of what we need? And he would fight, and he would, with whether it's the government or whether it's the private channels, that unless we start reporting news from our perspective, a South Asian perspective, we'll never know what's happening in the world. And he started getting backing, and I just said, I was a trained filmmaker, right? So I could shoot, I used to do camera, I could do sound, I could do editing. Wow. I said, I'll be your on-man team. Just let's go.
Basically, that's the answer to everything.
Yeah, and it became the next 5 years was a dream for me. Even when I look back now, if you were to ever ask me which is the most fantastic part of your career, I would still look back to those years with Saeed Naqvi, because it was literally, I was in my early 20s, and there used to be a huge world map in the office, and he would say, he used to call me Khan Saab, kidhar jana hai? And we say, I'm hearing the problems happening here and all. And in 2 days, we would be on a plane to that place. In 5 years, I traveled with Saeed Bhai alone more than 60, 70 countries. Reporting from these places with on news, which was
all trouble spots.
Or sometimes even fun areas, but something where there was something newsy happening and needed to be reported from our area. So a lot of trouble spots. Went to Israel many times, went to in those times when the war was on in Bosnia, and went to Afghanistan and to a lot of these places, but of course went to many other countries also. And I'll tell you what happened with that, because apart from the obvious sort of maturity that you get when you're traveling, just because of the amount of exposure that you're getting, the kind of people you're meeting, the kind of research you're doing every time, because it's not like going to a country just as a tourist, right? You're going as a journalist stroke documentary filmmaker, so you are getting into the skin of the country. You're spending time, you're understanding what's happening over there, and then you're also reporting news which you've seen on BBC and CNN, and you suddenly realize there's something wrong over here. This is not what's happening on the ground. So gave me a very early insight into understanding that what the Western media says is not gospel. They are saying it through their perspective, and sometimes it can be wrong for us. So it allowed me to say it. And if you now look at some of my films, whether it's a Kabul Express or whether it's a New York or whether even it's Tiger, it is the story that lies in the gap between what should have been told to us but what was told to us by the Western media. And in that gap lie all those stories. So it was a great learning process for me to be able to question what we sometimes take as gospel.
Yeah. Also, there is no real love story in your movies between the main leads. Your love story is with the travel, with the journey, and with the subject. Your love story lies there.
So I've often been asked this, and I try to answer it. And what I say is that sometimes we wrongly state a love story as a love story just between a man and woman. Actually, what an audience needs is an intense emotional journey between two subjects, right?
Yes.
What they want is that emotional depth. They want that lump in their throat to come. Now, 95% of the time, it comes through love stories, because 90% of our stories are love stories. But for me, the love story in Bajrangi is not between Kareena and Salman. It's between Salman and the little girl.
Yeah.
For me, the love story in Chandu Champion is Chandu's love story with the gold medal. Or actually, for me, it's also a love story between Vijay Raj and Murlikant Petkar, because that's such an intense emotional connect that they have. So it's about being able to bring out the emotions that usually come out from a love story between a man and a woman from sort of other quarters. So a lot of times I've been asked that how come you don't have too many. I think the only true blue love story that I've made is my Forgotten Army, my series, which was a love story, and to a certain extent, Ek Tha Tiger it's got of course a lot of action and backdrop, but deep down it's a true story. It's a true story between two adversaries, and it was again really Tiger is actually quite a subversive thought, because it's not only about being patriotic, and it's about actually what he says is which is a very, for me, the defining dialogue in that film is when Girish Karnad at the last scene asks Tiger, "Kab tak bhagoge?" And Tiger says that जिस दिन हिंदुस्तान और पाकिस्तान में ISI और रॉ की ज़रूरत नहीं रहेगी, उस दिन हम वापस आ जाएंगे. Which basically means the day the hatred is over, we won't need to run. Yeah. So that's the kind of politics I've always wanted to portray in my films. I'm a hugely patriotic person, but I have a certain definition of patriotism. It's not sloganeering, it's not chest thumping. It's the way Chandu or Murlikant Petkar expresses his patriotism. He doesn't do any sloganeering, but just the most ultimate acts of patriotism. Or Kapil Dev never sort of resorts to sloganeering or chest thumping. No. He just goes and wins the World Cup for our country. And that's how much more patriotic can you be.
Amazing. So all your love stories are off screen. For home. So in that department, you and Minnie keep it private, right? Yeah. Tell us about your love story.
So Minnie and I go back to Delhi, and it's just that we were strangely living in the same locality, but never had met each other, despite having loads of common friends. And we actually met on work. I used to be a freelance camera person, and she was a freelance presenter before she joined MTV as a VJ. And this was a project for which we had both been contracted, and in fact we'd gone to that office on that particular day to say that we won't be able to do this show because we're both having date issues. But we both came together and met each other, and at the end of the meeting said, no, we're doing this show. And that's how it started. And then gradually, it was actually Minnie who shifted to Bombay before me. And because she, joined MTV, and I used to keep going up and down between Delhi and Bombay, till one day this is after my Afghanistan documentary, I said, I'm just going to take the plunge, and I just jumped and landed up in Bombay, and knew nobody. I knew not a soul in the film industry when I came. The only person I met when I landed is Arshad Warsi, because Maria and Minnie were MTV VJs together. So Maria and Arshad became our family in Bombay. He's also the first actor I offered my first film to, Kabul Express, and. But then gradually it opened up, and this is something which I often say, because in the last few years there has been a bit of a unfortunate narrative that's been built up about how our industry is not really open for outsiders, or not welcoming to the outsiders. And I said, of course it is a difficult industry, and of course it's difficult to sort of penetrate because there's just so much of competition.
But I guess every industry
ours more in terms of the sheer number of people wanting to come into this industry, from outside Bombay. Yes, but at the same time, I'm a complete outsider who knew nobody in this industry, but I did manage to cut through and make it, and I can see a genuine excitement for new talent in our industry. It's not that it's not there. The other day, there was this conference in Kashmir where Imtiaz, Vishal and I were there, and there was this press conference at the end of that conclave, and one of the journalists asked us, that if we have scripts and how do we break through, because it's impossible for outsiders to break through. And I just paused over there and I said, just look at the three people you're asking this question. That's Imtiaz Ali, this is Vishal Bardwaj, this is Kabir Khan. All three are outsiders. We knew not a soul in this industry when we landed up. If we could do it, take it as a sign that it can be done. It won't be an easy journey. It'll be a very tough journey. But if you have the talent, I am 100% sure you'll cut through.
And if they had your magic camera, which got you everything you wanted.
You know, stills actually has been my first love.
Yeah.
Yeah, still photography, even till date, people who know me well know. For me, if you ask me what is it that you would love to do, like what's your is take my still camera and lenses and just go walk the streets of a city for like
Black and white?
Black and white. Now off late I've been started doing a lot of black and white.
Yeah.
For a long time I used to do transparencies and slides, but these last 4-5 years I've been doing more black and white. I think it's also in a certain sense I want to go and do something that I'm not doing in my films, because I'm very actively involved in the cinematography of my films. I love collaborating with my DOPs. So I think cinema black and white is also something that takes me away from my films a little.
Yeah. You just mentioned that you became friendly to Arshad and Maria. She's a huge scuba diver.
Yeah.
And so are you.
Yes.
Yeah. So you, like all four of you go together scuba?
Arshad doesn't dive. Arshad
Okay.
is claustrophobic, so he's somebody who says, "Tum jao pagal, main nahi ja raha hu." But Maria, no, actually Maria have. Maria,
Yeah, she's...
no, Maria does. I'm just trying to remember. Have Maria and us dived together? I don't think so. Strangely, yeah, no, we haven't.
But she's a big diver.
She's
and
a
so are
big
you.
diver. She's a big diver. Minnie and I actually did a scuba diving course on a honeymoon. So, in our honeymoon, we were giving exams and studying for because you have to give a certification course.
Where did you do that?
We did it in a beautiful island called Boracay in Philippines.
Philippines, yeah.
It's a fabulous 6-kilometer long island made of pure white powder. So we went there and did it. It was actually a island also. Strangely, it was discovered during a film location scout. There was a Hollywood crew that was looking for locations. I think Mutiny on the Bounty or one of the films that they were trying to do. And
Next time, try Seychelles also. The Seychelles.
Seychelles, I've never gone diving. Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Apparently, it's good. Yeah, but we've done a lot in Thailand, in Philippines, in Australia. That's something that both of us love.
But how do you find time for scuba diving, your personal hobbies, and balance it? How do you find that perfect work-life balance?
I tend to take time between my films.
Okay.
I'm not somebody who's always because I find I'm also a writer-director.
Yeah.
So to write, you need to take some time to
Yeah.
recharge, get the stimuli from different places, stories. So in that time when I'm sort of off between two films, I managed to put in travel, put in things what we like doing, and I think that's very important because if you don't expose yourself more and more to the world and to what's happening, then you can get
Your
stuck in
stories get limited.
You get limited. So it's very important to that work-life balance in the film industry. I think is very important.
It is. Kabir, how do you handle criticism? Because you've not got it most of your life, but off late.
No, I've been criticized for. I don't think there's any film for which you don't get criticized from some quarter or the other. But I don't take it too seriously. I try and see what has happened of late is some of the criticism comes in the form of trolling. So that for me is a blank spot. I don't even look at it because what is the trolling and it's absolutely non-constructive. So, but if it comes from quarters that are constructive or comes from people that I do care about or care about their opinion, then I do read it and try to understand it or hear it if it's coming in person. But more importantly for me, it's very important that I never let that change me or take me off my path, because I think it's very important to stay true to what your gut feel is, because that same gut feel and that same gut instinct has got you some of your biggest successes also. So if one or two don't work, it should not push you away from your gut instinct, because if you allow that to happen, then you're setting up yourself for pretty much 100% failure, because now you're in territory that you don't know. I've often said that filmmakers should and I think most of them do make films that they like watching. I make the films that I like to watch. I never can say I'm going to make a film for somebody else. I can't say, okay, let me make this film for you, because I don't know you as well as I know myself. So I'm going into a territory that is going to be then, not sure. So I always will approach a film and make it the way I want to make it, because there's just so many processes that go into a film. If you keep second guessing it, you're going to be all over the place. You're going to get destroyed. So therefore, you must make it with your full conviction, and then you keep your fingers crossed. Sometimes a large number of people will attach themselves to your vision. Sometimes a smaller number of people will attach themselves to your film. And if you've made the film well and you're happy with it, then it's just a question of, okay, in some you make millions, some you don't. But if you make a film that you yourself are not 100% confident of, have made it with the wrong reasons, and then it doesn't do well, that can destroy you. Because then you've done something dishonest and you've gone into a
case
thing.
in point being 83 and Chandu Champion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very loved movies.
Yes, absolutely.
Could have got more critical success. So how did you deal with that? Because there was a little criticism there in terms of the commercial part.
So the thing is, the commercial part actually I don't take as criticism. For me, it's what are people feeling when they're watching the film. And if that goes overwhelmingly positive, that for me, that film is a success. When I meet people who say, if I get a lot of people saying ki ye picture achhi nahi lagi hame, ye kharab thi, and then it doesn't sort of do wonders at the box office, then I'm saying, okay, it didn't go here and there. But if you get a film, the kind of love, for example, that Chandu got in terms of the critical acclaim, the kind of word of mouth, or even, see, 83, I can understand what happened. That was bang in the middle of the pandemic, so that is something which is not going to be, I totally understood. By the end of our first week, 9 states had shut down their theaters, so obviously you can't expect that. So then when the love came from on the OTTs, it was a great sort of a second tsunami that came. In the case of Chandu Champion also, we could have definitely, been happier with more box office numbers. But the sheer love that the film has been getting, as we are speaking, is still running in the theaters, and the kind of messages that I'm getting, that makes it, because see, at the end of the day, a film has to be successful for itself. So if you've made a film that's, broken even, it's making whatever little money it is for itself, and it's got the kind of love that it gets, that I'm happy with. It's when you make something which you're yourself not confident of, and then it starts getting flack, then what did I do this for? But if you do it with your conviction that it'll find its audience, and if it does connect the way it's connecting with the audience, then that is a film that you sort of then are happy and you have a good night's sleep about.
You mentioned the pandemic. Do you think the pandemic, because people being locked in, there's so many deaths, it's changed people in terms of viewing?
It definitely has. I mean, the whole pattern of viewing content more on OTT has definitely happened, because, over a period of almost a year, we completely stopped going to the theaters. And obviously the habit of watching content on OTTs is something that became a habit. It became something that you got comfortable with, and then you started looking at films. Okay, is it even worth it to go and step out and sort of see these films? The prices started increasing. So I think people started thinking that maybe it's just easier for me
not
to...
Not just the platform, also the choice of movies. Like people want more fun stuff. They want more lighthearted stuff, because they said, okay, life is so short, we don't know what next, we don't want to be serious.
You're absolutely right. There has been a change which has definitely taken place post OTTs. Now, whether all those changes are clear and whether one can sort of clearly see what's happening, I'm not sure, because I think it's still early days. But the few that one can easily see, you're right, is that people are sort of wanting to maybe have more sort of frivolous fun in the theaters that they want to accept. Definitely the cost of the prices, of the tickets going up has been a deterrent for them to go into the theaters. But it's not just the cost of the tickets, it's the whole cost of the whole experience, which includes, the food you eat in the theaters, the cost of the travel, the parking, everything has become prohibitive. So I think that's also, that's why you see even the biggest films post COVID, the footfalls are not equal to the footfalls of the films pre-COVID. Which is sad, because the number of theaters, ideally we should have had a bigger audience coming back. In a country like China, the number of theaters has gone up to more than 100,000. We are still struggling with 4,000 to 5,000.
But they've cracked the formula with Hollywood movies. Here we haven't cracked that formula. We need more good movies, Hindi movies, Indian movies overall.
But the problem here is happening that despite, sometimes what happens is, even if 2 or 3 films release on the same week here, we're struggling for screen space. So it's a strange sort of a catch-22 that's happened.
It
you know,
is actually, yeah, you're
we
right. Yeah.
we don't have enough screens to cater an audience of our size, because basically a big Hindi film, and I'm talking about pre-COVID numbers, used to be watched. If it was a blockbuster, it was watched by about 3.5 crore
Yeah.
people. 3.5 crore people is not even 3% of our
Not even
population.
three,
So
yeah.
imagine the biggest films is watched by 3% of your
That's unfortunate.
population
That's really
in the theaters, and of course then later through satellite, and now increasingly through OTT.
OTT.
There is also a larger number watching it. But I think an industry like ours needed many more theaters in smaller towns, because all our theaters are getting concentrated in the what you call A towns, and I think the smaller towns are not having access to theaters.
Yeah, and lower priced. Lower
lower
price for the
priced.
smaller
Absolutely.
audiences. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Coming back to Chandu Champion, absolutely loved the movie. But what made you pick a young soul like Kartik, to play Murli Petkar?
Because if you see the film, the bulk of his life is actually from the age group between 18 to 26. 18 is roughly 18 is when he ran away from the village, and he was 26 when he got the gold medal at the Paralympics. So I needed actually somebody who really could pass off with that. I needed that youthful exuberance. I needed that youthful naivety that is there in the character. In the village, when he says that मेरे को Olympic जाना है, it is worth getting a slap from the father saying, what the hell are you talking about? So I needed that youthfulness in my
You
character.
needed a wonder boy.
And that's why Karthik.
But how did you help him get into character to play the paralyzed sportsman? Because the youth, the exuberance, great. But to play, somebody who's...
Yeah. So it was a huge process, and I think one of the reasons why I decided on Karthik was his initial enthusiasm for going through something like this. That he knew that this is going to be a long journey. He knew this is not a film he's going to walk in and walk out of in 5-6 months. He knew it's going to be a year and a half of complete and utter dedication in picking up skills in terms of boxing, in terms of wrestling, in terms of swimming without the use of your legs, swimming against the real Paralympians, going through body transformations throughout the film. So it's not only like he's fat and he's thin. There are stages of his life in the film. He's a little plump in the kushti, because that's the way the pehlwans are, and then getting those 6 packs and really ripped for the boxing part. Then again losing it when he becomes a Paralympian. So I think him ready to come on with that kind of enthusiasm and excitement. Sometimes for a director, that's half the battle won.
Yeah, but thank God you didn't give him a monologue in this.
Yeah, I told him, I said, the 2 things that you're famous for is your hair, which I'm going to cut as soon as you start the film, and are your monologues. And I promise you, your silences in this film will speak louder than your monologues.
Louder than your words, yeah. Amazing. Yeah. It's been 15 years since your New York.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
15 years. And in 15 years, has your perspective towards cinema, towards movies, towards what you deliver, what you watch, has that changed? Have you changed?
I'm sure. Of course we have, because, I don't think anybody can stay the same for 15 years. There are lots of things that, you experience, you read, you watch, which shape you as an individual. And that's definitely happened. Like, in fact, I was, these 15, I'm not very good at keeping track. And then suddenly those social media pop-ups come 15 years and you said, oh shit, I didn't realize it's 15 years.
15 years.
And New York has been a film which was really a turning point in my life. So I remember exchanging a message with Katrina also that day and saying happy 15th anniversary to New York, and we both were sort of ruminating and saying how it was probably one of the best time of our lives when we went to shoot that. And then I saw the film again. And I'm happy to say that it stood the test of time for me. But at the same time, when you watch things which are that, you made 15 years ago, you look at something and say, okay, maybe would I have done this different? Maybe I would have done this different. So you do change, you do evolve. Your story style, your telling style evolves. Your craft evolves. Today as a craftsperson, as somebody who can craft a film, I think I'm more adept than I was maybe 15 years ago. So all those little changes do happen, but inherently, I think you remain the same. Inherently, you approach the kind of stories that used to excite you even then would excite me even today.
You also mentioned in an interview recently that Salman Khan is not a hero, he's a superhero. So are you making Bajrangi Bhaijaan 2 soon?
That's a question that's often asked. See, I've actually, if you see my filmography, I've stayed away from sequels till now
Yeah.
because I felt that somehow they didn't excite me till now. I'll never say never, but till now I'm not like I remember because that's also a trend, in our industry that the moment your film becomes successful, people
Yeah.
ask you when is a sequel. I remember being asked this question when New York became very successful and there was this press conference. Somebody asked me, so New York 2 कब बना रहे हैं आप? And I said, आपने अगर फिल्म देखी है तो सबको गोली मार दी है मैंने, कोई बचा नहीं है, तो किस पे बनाऊंगा? But Tiger was a very obvious choice to go into a sequel, but at that time I didn't feel excited enough. Of course, it's now
Okay.
become a franchise and different directors have been making
Yeah.
it. Bajrangi there's been a huge clamor for Bajrangi 2.
Yeah.
I would love to take the character of Bajrangi forward, but it needs to be something worthy enough. I feel
Yeah.
Bajrangi, at least in my filmography, is such an iconic film. Become a bit of a classic, and
Yeah.
I just feel sometimes classics should be
Left alone. Yeah.
But yes, I mean, in the coming days or weeks or months, if there is an idea that comes to me suddenly where I feel, okay, why not? The adventures of Bajrangi and Chand Nawab and something really exciting comes up.
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah. Never say never.
Never say never.
Kabir, to end, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, so you can give snappy answers. It's
Okay.
called quirky cues,
Okay.
quirky questions and quirky Qureshi or whatever it is. The one thing people will be surprised to hear about you.
My greatest pleasure is just walking away with cameras on my shoulder into an unknown city and just taking photographs all
Taking
alone,
pictures.
away from a crew, just solo with my camera, just shooting
Okay.
images. That's what I think is something that I've not spoken much about.
If you could collaborate with any filmmaker, living or deceased, who would it be?
But when you say collaborate, how would I collaborate with the director?
Co-direct.
Wow. I would actually love to collaborate with Mani Ratnam because I said he was one of the people I grew up admiring. And I would just love to forget about co-directing, or I'd just love to just be an observer. Because there's something about his, the way he tells
Yeah.
stories and the way he selects his stories, which is really, really admirable for me. So I would choose somebody closer home and say Mani Ratnam. When people ask me which is your favorite film, or it's sometimes not the film in itself. It's about at that moment in time what impact that film had on you. It's like Danny Boyle's Beach, right? There's no perfect
Yeah.
beach. It's about at that point in time what is
Yeah.
what impact it had on you. For me, so I would actually like to mention Gandhi. And there's a very interesting story along Gandhi. As I said earlier, that we used to live in central Delhi, in Lutyens, Delhi, and my house was literally walking distance from India Gate. And when I was very young, I was cycling around with a friend and around India Gate, and I saw hordes and hordes of people and trucks and buses coming and sort of going towards India Gate. And I cycled there and got stopped at one point in time, and I said, "Mujhe bhi jana hai andar." And they said, "No, you can't go like this." I said, "Why?" They said, "Kapde theek nahi hai." So I said, "What do you mean?" So he said, "Ab safed kapde pehen ke aao and we'll allow you in." So I went back cycling to my house and I wore a safed kurta pajama, came back cycling, tied my cycle to the tree, and I was let in. I just basically roamed around somewhere in the middle of crowds and crowds of people, only to realize much later that I was in the opening shot of the film Gandhi. The film opens with Gandhi's funeral shot, which has a shot taken from the top of India Gate of crowds from India Gate till Rashtrapati Bhavan. There must have been 30,000 people, 40,000 people.
Crowds.
No VFX.
No
right?
VFX. Yeah.
I later in life managed to get the call sheet of that day. I have it with me in my office where it says extras, some 30,000 so and so, 10,000 so. You can't even imagine in those days how they made those films. And so if you see that opening shot of Gandhi, somewhere in that master shot is me. And so I got fascinated by this film. I came back and I remember asking my mom, and she said, "Yeah, that's Richard Attenborough shooting for Gandhi, right?" Because it was all over the news that Attenborough is shooting Gandhi. And 2 years later, I think when the film came out, obviously we went to see the film. I realized which shot I was in. And I remember my mom taking me to the music store and buying me the LP of Gandhi. And that's the first time I realized what background score does in a film, because then I saw the film and
Wow.
So that film is the film that is the first time I started deconstructing a film and became obsessed with. I would say subconsciously, every film of mine, there's at least one shot which has been, for the lack of a better word, copied from Gandhi. Like I've always said, "Aisa shot Gandhi mein liya tha," and I end up taking a shot like that for all my films. So to sort of re-answer that question, which film you would want to collaborate, I would love to be a fly on the wall on Gandhi. Just
Wow.
observe
Yeah.
the way that film was made.
Yeah, what a thought.
Yeah.
What a thought. But you already collaborated on that one. You were part of it.
In a small way, yes.
Favorite film genre to watch?
Very eclectic. It could be anything. It could
Any-
be an out-and-out comedy. It could be a dark political thriller. I'm very eclectic in that sense. I don't follow actors and filmmakers. I just pick up films randomly and start watching them.
Which story has been most challenging for you to bring to the big screen?
Logistically would be 83. Because the sheer amount of research that went into it and the setups that were there, the amount of training of the number of people, the kind of teams to put together, logistically would be 83, but strangely also probably the most enjoyable.
After a long day at work or after a wrap up a shoot, what's your comfort food to go back to? How do you rejuvenate yourself?
I'm actually quite a healthy eater, so I don't really indulge in too much eating, but at the same time, I've always been a foodie. Every once a week at least, I would dive into good food. Again, I have a very varied taste. I can go from anything from my good old Hyderabadi biryani to Japanese and Korean food. So yeah, food has always been a very, very important part of my life. That's something when I'm traveling, that's something for me. You haven't traveled to a country if you haven't eaten all the food that the locals do.
Absolutely. I'm sure you gain weight during Ekta Tiger.
I never gained weight during my films.
Because that's where you got the YRF
yes.
hospitality
Yes.
and you got the Salman Khan hospitality.
But at the same time, I also am very, at my healthiest best when I'm shooting. A lot of people assume that you would end up putting on weight during your films. But I find shooting, especially shooting outside of Bombay, the best time to be healthy because it's a regimented life. You shoot for 12 hours, you're off for 12 hours, and you can pretty much decide what you want to eat, how you want to eat, and then also sort of work out with your actors.
One message for your fans.
Not really a message. I would just say I'm really happy that I've been supported by audiences to come see the kind of films I've been making. I love the kind of admiration and the love that I get from them, and as long as I have that, I shall continue making films.
Yep. And now finally, one word descriptors.
One-
for the following.
huh?
One
Okay.
word descriptors. Salman Khan,
Demigod.
Kartik, Aaryan,
Family. He's very endearing. He's very, very become very close to me. So I would say family.
John Abraham,
First gym instructor for me. He was again somebody who was so into gymming at that point in time. He's one of the pioneers of that in our industry, that he would train all of us together in New York.
Kareena Kapoor,
Fascinating to work with, and I just enjoyed my time working with her in Bajrangi.
your senior in Jamia, and the person who gave you your first national award, Shah Rukh Khan.
Shah Rukh Khan. Shah Rukh Khan is a legend, right? There's no other word for him. Absolute legend. And yes, my senior from Jamia, actually the only person I knew in Bollywood when I landed over there.
Yeah.
I knew nobody else. Him and Gauri. Gauri
Yeah.
and I
You-
actually used to dance together.
You copied his notes and stuff, right?
He gave me his notes. He actually at one of the award functions, not national award, at I think Screen Awards, he had given me at one of the years, I forget which year it was, he'd given me the best director award, and there he had said that people don't know what he studied from my notes.
Ranveer Singh,
Chameleon. Absolute chameleon.
is, yeah.
I've never seen anybody, he's a shapeshifter.
yeah,
I've never seen anybody become another human being the way he does.
Yeah.
Just completely.
that is so true. Yeah. Deepika,
Magical. Again, it was beautiful. She did a short role for me in 83, but she brings magic to whatever she does.
and Katrina Kaif.
Katrina is actually complete and total family. I mean, Katrina is somebody who I go back a very, very long way, and she's been probably my dearest, first and dearest friend in this industry. We've done also a lot of films together, but more than just the films, it's just we shared so much. And I think we both collaborated at a time which was a very special time in our lives. Sort of it set us off into something. For her, New York was a very special kind of new film to do, I'm so glad it got her so much of appreciation and set her off on a new path. For me also, New York was something that suddenly, Kabul, I got my appreciation, I got the national award, I went to all the film festivals, but it's still a small film, right? Still a niche film. New York is really what put me onto the map. So I think that bonding that we shared was a very special journey.
Is that your favorite city for the same reason?
It would be impossible for me to say favorite city because of the fact that I've traveled to more than 90 countries around the world. In fact, one of my personal aim is to touch the number 100. Which is not easy, I realize. After you cross 90, you start repeating those countries a lot. So I want to be 100 unique countries, because again, Saeed Bhai had mentioned, I don't know whether this club really exists or not, but he put it in my mind and I've always been fascinated by it. He said there's a club in London called Club 100, which gives admission only to people who have traveled to 100 exclusive countries. So once I do the 100, I'm going to start hunting around for that club.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Kabir. That was an amazing chat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.